So welcome again to Mountain Valley Pipeline Pipe Safety Call-In event. This is part of a series of events that are focusing on pipe safety issues as it relates to Mountain Valley Pipeline mainline. My name is Jessica Sims. I'm the Virginia Field Coordinator for Appalachian Voices and really appreciate y'all taking the time to be here today, taking your lunch break to do a quick informative call to action. All of the resources that you see today mentioned in the slides or shared in the chat will be sent to you after the program. A little bit of housekeeping. Again, today's event is being recorded. Additionally, there are captions available. If you go down to the More section of your Zoom window and click on the three dots, you should be able to select captions. The recording of this event will be placed on YouTube and will also feature closed captioning. So again, we're going to take some time today to sort of get on the same page of what's the latest with MVP, what's the issue about pipe safety, and all the ways we're going to take action and engage on this issue. So before we get started into the MVP sort of update, I want to pass it to my colleague, Grace Tuttle, who is another of today's hosts.
Thank you, Jess, and hello, everyone. Good to see so many familiar faces, and so many of you have been doing tremendous work on these issues for a long time, so we're really grateful for your work, and welcome to anyone that's engaging and joining us for the first time. I'm Grace Tuttle, she, her. I'm the Advocacy Director at POWHR Coalition, which represents directly impacted communities along the main line of the Mountain Valley Pipeline in West Virginia and Virginia. And we're really grateful that you're here to take action with us today and keep up the heat and the attention on these critical issues. Thanks, Jess.
Grace, thanks so much. So let's dive in on what the latest is on Mountain Valley Pipeline. There are many longtime MVP fighters on this call today, but some of you may be newer to this issue. So just want to bring everybody up to speed. This is a project originally introduced in 2014. We are in the 9th year of that fight. We are deeply thankful to everyone who has been working in this sustained collective opposition to an unnecessary, dangerous project. And even though we're in a moment right now where construction has resumed, we will continue to fight this project until it is defeated. And so that includes looking at all of the issues related to construction, monitoring, keeping the pressure on to have this project have as much sunlight on it as possible. Bad pun there when we're talking about pipe safety, but we are certainly not letting up in our opposition, and we will continue to support the communities who are leading this fight against the project. We saw that it's had a series of permits being vacated, lots of litigation related to the project, and bringing at the end of last year, we saw that congressional interference was a new tactic with a repeated attempt by Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia to include Mountain Valley Pipeline as a special provision in unrelated bills, including the National Defense Authority Act and unrelated financing bills. So we, with help from all of y'all across the country, defeated the dirty deal 5 times last year. But Senator Manchin was able to take his same approach and insert MVP provisions into an unrelated debt ceiling bill, the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So coming into 2023, the project is still only half built, 55.8% complete to full restoration. That's according to the company's own reports as recently as June. But we saw that when Congress passed the Fiscal Responsibility Act, that included provisions that required approval of all federal authorizations for MVP and prohibits judicial review of those permits, it essentially circumvented oversight of the project in an attempt to rush completion. And so now we're at a point where completion has begun again. There is still existing litigation out there, and these are challenges to some of the permits from agencies like the Fish and Wildlife Service and the biological opinion that they issued, and the Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management's authorizations for MVP. So Mountain Valley Pipeline had asked that the challenges to that those permits be dismissed, and the U.S. Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals has been sort of looking at that case. They had issued a stay or halted construction while that case was being reviewed. But when oral arguments for that motion to dismiss were heard on Thursday, July 27th at the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in Richmond, the Supreme Court issued an order during proceedings to lift the stays that the Fourth had put in. But they did not go as far as MVP wanted and sort of dismissing the entire thing. So we know that the most challenging sections for MVP to complete lie ahead. And that's why it's very critical that we ask for any safety measures possible and keep eyes on the ground. So many of y'all have been part of that critical monitoring effort to hold project constructors accountable at every step. We know that what is left is disproportionately difficult. And then we know that the company's prior record of violations and their need for numerous variances and extensions raises questions about their ability to complete the remaining work in a responsible way. So we are dedicated to continuing this fight, and I'm going to turn it over to Grace about a specific safety issue that is very timely.
Okay, thank you, Jess. And thank you everyone again for being here. I'm going to talk about a pretty wide range of very complicated subjects that I am not an expert on. So this is just a big bird's eye view. And then the information I'm going to present is pulled from a variety of sources that are all linked in our Stop MVP Grassroots Toolkit, which I just put in the chat. That should take you directly to a bookmark labeled Talking Points and Resources, where you can find many more documents, filings to FERC, MVP's responses to filings, PHMSA regulations, all sorts of things to dig into this deeper. So don't feel the need to take a ton of notes. We'll send you these slides and there are resources to go deeper. So first, I just want to shout out a variety of folks who are on this call who have been creating these resources and doing a tremendous amount of this work. Bill Limpert, Preserve Bent Mountain, Bert Bondurant, Bill Kitchen, NRDC. These folks are keeping the drumbeat and documenting, Crystal Mello, lots of other community documenters and community organizers who are on the ground observing the insufficient coding and other safety issues. So just want to lift those folks up and many more who I missed. Thank you for your work in allowing us to present this in a tidy little package. So as we all know, MVP is a particularly high-risk pipeline. It includes 75 miles of the steepest slopes, some of the steepest slopes in Appalachia, and more than 200 miles with high landslide susceptibility, which all contribute to the increased risk and safety issues here. Just a little bit more background, the current potential impact radius or blast zone where death or serious injury is likely is 1,115 feet from the point of explosion at any point. And we link in our toolkit to an interactive map where you can check out that area. Today, we're going to focus on asking a couple agencies in particular with jurisdiction over the project, such as FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, or PHMSA, as well as legislators, the Department of Transportation, and the Virginia State Corporation Commission to address these issues and to strongly consider these additional measures that I'm going to get to that they can take to ensure the safety of communities in the path of the pipeline, the land, and the clean water, and all the other life that is at risk. So nearby communities have known about these risks. They've been shouting them from the rooftops for years. And we need your help to lift up those voices and to urge agencies to take action to help these communities rest easier with the knowledge that there are people looking out for their safety, their water, their homes, and their land. Again, there's a lot of information available on the risks. I'm only going to go into some of it. Our script that we're going to share with you also only goes into a couple points for brevity, since you're going to be just leaving a quick message. but please consider using the resources in that toolkit if you have a few minutes to draft a comment, a more detailed comment. If you want to email PHMSA, if you would like to submit a comment to the FERC docket, we'll get into that and you can customize that with more information. So, okay, thank you again to everyone that's worked tirely on this. First and foremost, the issue we're kind of focusing on today with our advocacy is the MVP pipe coating issues, which are numerous. It is known and well documented that pipe and coating degradation, cracking, and corrosion increase the risk of pipeline failure and explosion. We do have sources for that. Most MVP pipes were likely coated 6 to 7 years ago, and many have been sitting out exposed to the elements for that nearly or that much time. And industry standards recommend no more than 6 months in those conditions without additional recoating. There are significant concerns about the effectiveness of the FBE epoxy coating on the pipeline that has been exposed to the weather much longer than the recommended amount. And here's a quote from NRDC's recent filing: pipe and coating degradation, cracking, and corrosion increase the risks of pipeline failure and explosion. These pipes could be used in crossings of sensitive waterways or in areas with high landslide potential due to extremely steep slopes, seismicity, and other risk factors. MVP has continued to respond to community concerns, and on the FERC docket, CP 1610, and it remains unclear how much cathodic protection MVP has in place. Cathodic protection is one of the 2 main lines of defense against pipeline corrosion. Cathodic protection applies a small electrical current onto a pipeline, which stops the naturally occurring corrosion that can evidently help prevent further corrosion and risk of explosion. And external coating is the other main line of defense that we're discussing today. And MVP continues to claim that it is not practicable or environmentally sound to coat the pipes off-site or replace them entirely. And let's see, I think we can go to the next slide, Jess. Thank you. And I want to thank Bill Limpert again. This is one of Bill's lists in his recent filing that's publicly available on the FERC docket, which we also link to. This is kind of a quick summary of the main issues at hand here: MVP's explosive potential, the numerous pipe coating deficiencies, cathodic protection deficiencies, numerous and ongoing and continuing landslides, MVP's long history of environmental violations, weak regulations and enforcement, and the failure of these 2 agencies we're focusing on today, FERC and PHMSA's, their failure to keep the public adequately informed of what's going on and how to protect themselves. So next slide, Jess. I also want to touch on some issues that have been raised by impacted community members and monitors recently that are just contributing to concerns and safety issues. Community members, and again, you can look up these filings, we'll link to a couple of them in the toolkit. Community members are seeing MVP coating only portions of pipe, only tops of pipe, a very piecemeal coating job with rollers in some cases, and just not at all adequate to the circumstances. And MVP has responded, and you can read their response if you like. Another big concern that validates local on-the-ground concerns is that a recent TC Energy, part of their Columbia gas pipeline system, exploded extremely close to homes in Interstate 81 in Shenandoah County a couple weeks ago, which has exemplified the fears and the very present dangers that we are discussing today. That is a much smaller pipeline than MVP, that is 26 inches as opposed to MVP's 42-inch diameter. Again, another quote from Bill. Thank you, Bill. The public has witnessed hundreds of landslides, most all of the pipe exposed to the sun and elements, degraded and gouged pipe coating, large amounts of rust inside the pipes that has rolled down the mountainside, and sediment discharge into their pristine waterways. Another emerging concern is that MVP has recently submitted a variance or essentially a change of plans request to FERC, which basically has, due to the FRA, carte blanche authority to approve any and all variances, any and all changes that MVP wishes to make. And they have requested to use around 260,000 gallons, sorry, I forgot the word gallons there, of municipal water in, I believe it's Nicholas County, West Virginia, to treat contaminated soils after finding very high soil temperatures, upwards of 140 degrees Fahrenheit, due to coal mining gob waste. So again, that just demonstrates the very real concerns around pipe safety, corrosion, explosion, et cetera, and the terrain that this project is going through. So these and other issues continue to contribute to growing anxiety about the risk of explosions and other areas of community safety. And again, we're only touching on a few things here. So please check out those other resources. So getting to our asks here. And again, this is a lot of information. We're going to send you everything, and just reiterating that most of the info I'm providing here is fodder for if you are going to draft your own comment or continue to engage on this issue. So don't worry about writing it all down or putting it all together today. It's kind of, a way to get exposed and access to further resources, and we'll have a shorter script for you to take action today. So of course, one of our chief concerns is that pipeline integrity and coatings need to be held to the highest safety standards. And we have a variety of asks here. We're going to focus on a couple asks today. But one of those asks being that agencies should require independent, so not chosen by MVP, preferably chosen by the impacted communities, as many community members have iterated, independent inspection of all pipes intended for use, as well as the off-site recoating of pipes or full replacement of damaged pipes. Agencies should be requiring MVP to identify any sections of buried pipe currently without cathodic protection, and requiring cathodic protection for the entire pipeline immediately. And thank you, Nan, and others who are putting additional asks in the chat. Please add all the info. This is just a cursory list here. The company should not be permitted to determine on its own high consequence areas. And high consequence areas are areas along gas pipeline routes that are considered to present the greatest risk to human life, property, and the environment. And pipeline operators are supposed to establish extra safety measures and precautions to protect those high consequence areas. And so there are some more detailed asks for agencies around that in our resources, as well as urging that the entire route needs to have a geohazard mitigation plan. As we know, there are an incredible amount of geohazards. Nan just mentioned soils along the MVP route. There's extensive karst terrain, subsurface streams, aquifers, caves, sinkholes, variety of soils, seismic zones, its own seismic zone in Giles County, just as a few examples. And additionally, the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, or PHMSA, should complete a new impact radius or blast zone analysis, and a site-specific analysis of each area needs to be created to accurately determine community threat levels, so folks can understand the threat levels for the area that they live in. There are a variety of local asks here concerning local safety plans, fire department rescue plans, all sorts of things that we haven't included in this broad slideshow, but that you can access again in the resources and talk to community members on the ground to find out what else you can advocate around. And I think that's it for asks. Jess, if you want to go to the next slide. Okay. So hope you're not tired of hearing me talk yet. I'm going to keep talking about advocacy on this issue. For this particular piece of the pipe safety issue, we are going to be talking about a variety of ways to take action today. And then we're going to try, I think, 3 of those together while we're on the call. So we're gonna start with PHMSA, then we're gonna go through FERC's process, and then Jess is gonna take us into engaging with legislators. So first of all, we are calling on PHMSA's Office of Pipeline Safety and our comment party, which I can't remember if we've already mentioned, with CCAN on the 14th, next Monday, is about a PHMSA methane leak detection rulemaking, which is relevant to this project, and we'll have a more detailed PHMSA comment process explanation on that comment party. So we will share that with you. But for today, we are going to be calling and emailing these specific numbers to contact this department. And we are getting some indications that public pressure directly to PHMSA and through legislators is at least prompting PHMSA to say that they are going to come out and getting their attention. So we need to keep this pressure up. So let's go to talk about FERC. Okay, so many of you are extreme veterans of this process, but apologize, just tune out for a few minutes if you don't want to hear about this again. But we're going to walk through the e-comment process today. And like I've said, when you're making the quick call that we're going to make to PHMSA, the quick call to your legislator or to the Department of Transportation, we are going to provide you with a short script. You're welcome to customize it how you see fit. But like we went through before, we have a variety of resources. If you want to go deeper, if you have a few minutes to draft a comment, we'll have some time today to start drafting that comment. This is a really great opportunity for you to personalize and customize a short, however short you want to make it, it could be long, comment, and then actually submit that to the FERC docket, which is sort of a more formal registering, public registering of your concerns. FERC staff has to read it. It keeps folks subscribe to the docket, get a notification about it. It keeps the pressure on FERC about this issue. So we will tell you how to do that right now. So FERC has, of course, changed, if you would go back, sorry, Jess, thank you. FERC has changed their homepage. The quick links now has e-file and e-comment listed together. So it used to have them separate. So you would just click on that e-file, e-comment. Then it's going to take you to this page where it looks like you have to log in. You do not have to log in to use e-comment. So that's a little bit confusing. Of course, thanks, FERC. You would go down to the left menu here, and we've noted this on the slide, and select e-comment there. Okay, so that was the quick links version. You can also access e-comment through the FERC homepage. If you click on the left side menu, FERC Online, where that orange arrow is pointing you, then you can, from the FERC Online menu, navigate over to the right and select e-comment. If you're on a mobile device, it's going to look a little bit different. You'll have a drop-down menu that you can press. Then you can select FERC Online. Then you can select e-comment from there. Okay, so once you have selected e-comment through a variety of those lovely methods that we've just shared with you, you will now be shown this screen, which will prompt you to fill out your information. So you'll fill out your name, your physical or mailing address. Glad to hear that, Micah. That seems improbable, doesn't it? That it would take you straight there in the chat. That's funny. So you'll fill out your name, phone number, and email. Only your name will be publicly available. You'll fill out the CAPTCHA there to prove that you're not a robot. You will hit authorize, which will then prompt a email to your email. Probably takes, I just did it, it took 3 minutes to arrive. Once you get that email, you're going to click on the link provided in the email, which will take you to your customized e-comment webpage. And then it is time to select which docket you are hoping to comment on. So for this particular issue, we are just going to be, you just have to search CP 16-10, which is like the root docket for MVP's mainline project. Once you search that, you're going to get a variety of sub dockets that pop up here. You can see 000, 001, 002, etc. You're going to hit the blue plus on the basic 000 docket, CP 1610-000. Once you hit that blue plus, it will appear in the window below, and then it will also show your name, city, and state where you have indicated that you're commenting from. Very important here. Here's your text box. So this is, e-comment is for sort of just like blocks of text. It's not if you're submitting photos or any other kind of evidence that you would use e-file, and we also will share our resources for how to do that. But a piece of advice here is to draft your comment in a separate document. Use Word, use Google Docs, use whatever you're comfortable with. Do not draft your comment in this text box, because this website is notorious for crashing. You will 50% chance you could lose your work if you draft it in here. So draft it elsewhere, copy and paste it in here. And then you're going to, and you'll see you have a character maximum. I think it's 6,000. So you'll hit send comment when you're done. If everything worked, you will get an email again from FERC, efiling@ferc.gov, which will confirm that your comment was submitted. And you'll have a link sort of proving that. And then who knows how long later, you'll see that comment show up on the docket that you submitted it to. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over to Jess, and thanks folks, keep putting those questions in the chat and we will get to those at the end.
Grace, thanks so much for sharing that opaque process and making it a little easier for us to understand how to access the FERC website if we do want to submit an e-comment. It really is, if you have the time, you want to say more, it's a great way to get it in a public space, and for others to be able to see and be inspired by what you're sharing. And that goes into the record. So it's part of the broader MVP conversation that everyone can see. Excuse me. So today, when we take some time together to take action, we're going to focus primarily on calls and sending a quick email. But we'll get to that in just a moment. The sort of third group that we're focusing on. So we are focusing on PHMSA. We're focusing on FERC. The third group are the elected officials that are meant to serve the communities they represent. And what we have seen is that pressure on those officials can be effective. Pressure on those officials to pressure agencies to give information, to advocate for the safety of their constituents is very important. So I just want to flag, although folks like Senator Manchin are proponents of this project, there has been sustained and robust opposition to the project from elected officials. And that has looked like local opposition from members of boards of supervisors. It's been a continued opposition from state legislators, with a lot of leadership from Delegate in Virginia, from Delegate Sam Razul and Senator John Edwards, and advocating against the project and its, lack of need, and advocating for their constituents on these issues. And we recently saw this reflected in a opinion piece from Delegate Razul in the Washington Post. So there is opposition to the project at the national level too. That can look like full opposition to the project or opposition to sort of rewriting the process and allowing Congress to insert Mountain Valley Pipeline into an unrelated federal bill. So although they were not stating they were against the project, we saw Senator Kaine, especially, and Senator Warner introduce an amendment to the Fiscal Responsibility Act, asking that MVP be pulled out because they recognized that it was truly a thumb on the scale for the project. So we want to keep talking to them and having them hear how they can help at every moment what they can do in this moment, and that's advocating for their constituents and by asking FERC and PHMSA to take action on this issue. So when we get to the script, depending on who you're contacting, we'll kind of go through how you might modify the message. But if you are in a community that is impacted, this means contacting your state representatives, your supervisors, your congressperson, and your state senators. And we'll have some of that info too. The other component of this, and we're looking at the state level sort of monitoring of this. We have our Department of Environmental Protection in West Virginia, Department of Environmental Quality in Virginia. They're looking at violations related to water quality standards or water permit rules. They're not necessarily looking at the condition of the pipe. In Virginia, the Virginia State Corporation Commission is tasked with that responsibility. And so we have a contact email for them today that we would suggest that folks reach out to with these concerns. So, okay, we're getting, I think the next slide it's about to happen. So take a sip of water, get hydrated, take a bite of the sandwich. We're gonna start this kind of call to action together. So if you're comfortable doing this, we're all gonna stay muted, but we're gonna do this together. We're going to contact agencies, an elected official, and if time permitting, start drafting your comment to FERC. So what's that going to look like? There's a good number of us here today, so we've kind of come up with a way to split it up so that we're not all calling the same people at the same time. But let's go over what we're going to say. You'll see on the top of the screen is a script. This is for you to use, but to modify as you see fit. This is also something you can use as the basis or start of a comment that you want to draft to a legislator, to Secretary Buttigieg, to the Corporation Commission. It's all about making as much noise as possible on this issue to as many entities as possible. The more we talk about this, the more it will be covered in the media, and it sort of will snowball attention to FERC and PHMSA that MVP needs to be held accountable for this, and that they should request the most stringent state safety standards related to pipes, recoating them offsite, replacing them, inspecting them offsite. So the script today, when we do make a call, so if you have, so I'd ask everybody, get your cell phone handy, or if you're calling in today, all these resources are going to be sent with you afterwards. So if you can't make a call right now, okay. If you have your computer open and you've got your email open, you can do an email too. It doesn't have to be a phone call, or you can do both. So we're going to take a couple of minutes for this, but the script talks about a concern. Grace brought up, there's a recent 26-inch diameter gas pipeline that exploded in Strasburg, Virginia. So we want to make the case that pipelines, and this is the case, it's not a matter of if there is a leak, it's when and what that means in terms of its impact to the surrounding area and risk of explosion. So the script talks about that in comparison to MVP. So we want to make the point that it's a safety concern, and we just saw it happen in Virginia, where a pipe that obviously had a problem, and PHMSA has indicated it was a crack, resulted in an explosion. So we want to flag, my name is Jessica. I'm calling from Richmond, Virginia. I'm concerned about pipe safety because we just saw an explosion in Strasburg, Virginia, and it's a gas pipeline that's only 26 inches. Mountain Valley Pipeline is a 42-inch diameter pipeline, and its pipes intended for construction have been sitting out sometimes for up to 6 years. So you want to explain that makes them have their coating degrade. It makes them more prone to explosion, to failure, and that industry recommends no more than 6 months in the sun. So you just want to make the case. You can shorten this if you want, but you want to say, I am so-and-so, I am in this place. This issue is important to me. I am concerned about safety. I need you to act. So let's say you're calling a senator's office. You're going to ask the senator, hey, senator, well, you won't say hey, but when you leave, I don't know what you'll say when you leave. Please urge FERC and PHMSA to require independent inspection of all pipes, as well as offsite recoating. If you're calling the agency itself, you're going to ask them directly. Agency, please require offsite recoating and replacement. So just be mindful as you're making a phone call of which entity you're calling. So we've got 3 numbers up here. I think today we are lucky to have folks from lots of different places. So I just have Virginia legislators up. Apologies, but you can contact these offices. You can, even if you're not a constituent, to say, this is an issue that concerns me. You can call your legislator and say, I'm concerned about this issue in general. I think you should be concerned about it too. This is a risk for our neighbors in Virginia. So we've got Senator Kane, Senator Warner, Representative Griffith, and then PHMSA, we've got their phone number, and then the Office for Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, and then a couple of email addresses. So we're going to take a few minutes here and do this call to action together. We're going to leave this slide up. So if we can, maybe Grace, anybody else hold up a phone so we can, we're getting ready. So if you're we're going to do it this way so we're not getting a busy signal when we do this. And we're going to take just about 5 minutes to do this. If your last name begins with the letters A through L, we're asking you to please call PHMSA first. That's PHMSA on the right column. If your last name starts with the letter M through S, call an elected official. If your last name starts with T or T through Z, you can call Secretary Pete Buttigieg or start drafting a comment to FERC or an email to the State Corporation Commission. And in about 2.5 minutes, we're going to make the switch. So Grace is putting that in the chat. Thank you so much, Grace. Because my last name starts with S, Sims, I'm going to call an elected official and leave a message with them that I'm concerned about this issue. So we're going to take just a couple minutes. This is also just a suggestion. You can, we're not going to appreciate y'all doing this, appreciate your willingness to participate all together at once. If you make a call, let us know what happens. Put it in the chat. Did you reach anyone? What was their response? Were you able to leave a message? If you send an email, did you get something back? And so we're going to start now. Go ahead and make your first call to action, either a call, or start drafting that email. And we're going to circle back in 2.5 minutes, or about 2 minutes, and switch. And I will say too, if you know the local office for your representative, alternatively, you can call the local field office for Senator Kane, Senator Warner, Representative Griffith. So I'm actually going to do that and call their Richmond office for them. Okay, folks, it's time for call to action number 2. So pick a different number or start drafting an email, and then we'll be right back. Okay, one more call to action. If you've got it in you to start drafting an email or make one more call, that would be so greatly appreciated. So we're going to give this just one more minute. Thanks for putting in the chat what you're hearing. I can share in the Richmond offices. They let you leave a message in sort of a specific mailbox. And yeah, keep the calls coming, and we're going to be back in 1 minute. So if you feel so led, please make one more call or start drafting a comment. Okay, so we're going to start wrapping up that lunchtime action that we all took together. Deeply appreciate y'all indulging on this. And if you want to do this, if you're like not into it, want to do it later, we appreciate that too. So very much. So just want to go over, a couple logistics things again. All of the materials that you have seen and heard and what you've learned from Grace today will all be shared with you after, including today's recording. So before we stop the recording and give space to any questions, I want to share with y'all a couple ways to remain engaged on important issues concerning Mountain Valley Pipeline. And specifically, there are 2 upcoming events, including one this evening. And so I want to flag that. We'll have the registration pages there, but we know so much of this work is intersectional. And so we want to invite you to a program tonight that is being hosted by the POWHR Coalition, Organizing for Our Future, a prison-free and environmentally just Southeast, where you can learn from community leaders fighting the Letcher County Prison in Kentucky, MVP in West Virginia, and Southgate in North Carolina, in Cop City in Georgia about the future they are organizing towards in the Southeast. So that will be a really interesting and meaningful program that is tonight at 7 p.m. And then, as Grace mentioned before, we want to invite y'all to continue with our pipeline safety series and come to an evening time event next Monday night that we're hosting with Chesapeake Climate Action Network and the POWHR Coalition and App Voices to weigh in to PHMSA about their leak detection program and the improvements that can be made. So we'll have ways for you to easily participate in that. So we hope you can continue to keep joining us for these events. Please stay connected with the POWHR Coalition and all of the programming that is coming out there. Make sure you're signed up for their newsletter. Please stay connected with Appalachian Voices. And again, thank you to all of the partners who have helped raise this serious issue, and especially for those talking about it publicly, putting it into the docket, and putting out great media pieces on this subject. So I'm going to pass it to Grace if there's any final comments or thoughts you want to share, and then I'm going to stop the recording so that we can have a little space for any questions folks might have or have not yet been answered in the chat. So Grace, over to you.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks for mentioning those two events. Hope to see a bunch of y'all on both of those. And just as Jess said, I want to thank our community leaders and everybody that has been keeping this issue in the forefront and keeping it popping up on the FERC docket, and contacting all the agencies who need to be acting on this. I want to just share one more time, since I know there were so many resources shared, our grassroots toolkit, where we have a bunch of resources about pipe safety listed, as well as like context, kind of why we're focusing on this, context about the FRA and some court cases, and all of the contact information for the agencies, for a lot of legislators, how to find your own legislator, as well as information on how to go through the FERC process. And then we will send you the slides with the, the screenshots of the FERC website and all that. If you missed it, don't worry. It takes practice and looking at something because it's so complicated. We also have, I want to mention a talking points document created for impacted community members and advocates about pipeline safety, which could help you draft your comment to FERC. And so thank you so much for all of your awesome actions and for sharing about this in the chat while you were doing it. It's really encouraging, and it really makes a difference. As we can see, it prompts agencies to actually pay attention. So with that, I want to thank you all again. And so good to see all of you. And let's see if we can address any questions in the chat.